Welcome into Inside LAFC podcast every Monday, 12:30 Pacific time. We are live on LAFC YouTube, live on LAFC Facebook. We say hello to all the viewers, the listeners on both those fronts. This will be available on everywhere where you get your podcasts after we're live. So if you want to consume it that way, you have a lot of options. Glad you could join us. Didn't mean to scream, but I'm Max Bretos here. Benny, how's it going, man? How was the weekend?
It's been good. I'm glad I'm here on time this week, and we didn't have to push it back an hour, so our fans can be well accommodated. But I'm happy to be here.
Benny says it'll never happen again.
Never say never. That's what the coaches always say to me.
Good advice. As always, this is an interactive show. Leave your comments. We will answer the questions about the game against San Diego. We will preview Inter Miami. So this is a huge week. And then there's a game at Houston on Saturday, maybe a light dusting of that game as well. But you can see MLS-wise, a lot of road games coming up. So we welcome everyone on all those platforms to get involved. I see the one and only Juan Vargas is already in there. Congratulations, Juan. It means a lot to be first. We know that. Let us talk about the San Diego result, the final score from Snapdragon Stadium. San Diego defeating LAFC 3-2. A first meeting between these two clubs that are separated by a short stretch of I-5. We saw LAFC fall behind 3-0, which I think, Benny, you've played soccer your whole life. That's probably a bad recipe.
Not a good recipe.
LAFC fought back.
Yeah, and I think we saw some of that too. In the first half, we had 5 goals and none in the second. But definitely an exciting game. Quite a bit different of a game than some of the games that we've seen so far in LAFC's season, where there hasn't been that many goals, and we got 5 in one half. So a lot to kind of dissect a little bit with what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like. But I think one thing that we can say is San Diego's for real. And we've seen a lot of these expansion teams come in, and there's lots of question marks because I think earlier in the MLS days, expansion teams would come in and they wouldn't have the wherewithal to set up a roster that's, competitive straight out of the gate. But I mean, we only have to go and look at ourselves in the mirror and know that expansion teams can come out storming. And now we've seen San Diego as a very good team. We saw St. Louis a couple seasons back come out in a way that we weren't expecting, and now we're seeing San Diego do something similar.
I can guarantee you San Diego looked at that blueprint of St. Louis and were inspired by it. But again, yeah, they have some good players. That Andres Dreyer, massively influential. And I remember seeing him when he was playing in Belgium, and he stood out then. This is a high-level DP. We saw Chucky Lozano get some games as well. And we just coming back. But even then, this basis of Danish players, really good MLS campaigners has paid off. And as we talked about it last week, San Diego benefiting about the unknown. And so LAFC had to go in there. Now, LAFC did have a week. We talked about training. They had a week to prepare. And that's where you don't want to see a team go down 3 goals. As we're welcoming in Sir Crispy saying hello to me and to Mr. Feilhaber. Very formal. We like that. Jordan, tough loss, brutal, but what a game. I agree. This is, from an MLS perspective, Benny, the league's got to be pretty pumped about how this popped off the screen, how it was competitive, and it's something, the first episode of a matchup we'll see frequently through the years moving forward.
Yeah, for a second during that game, Max, I was almost thinking about our first game against the LA Galaxy and thinking we went out to a 3-0 lead only to lose 4-3. Obviously, bad memories, but I thought maybe that was going to be the wraparound, right? What goes around comes around, and we can get some closure to that game by doing the same thing to San Diego. It wasn't to be, but it's so much fun playing against the Galaxy as an LAFC player, LAFC fan, and now hopefully we have something similar brewing with San Diego where we get 5 goals in the first game and hopefully many more games with many more goals in the future.
Again, leave your comments, whether to talk about the San Diego result, to talk about Inter Miami, Messi coming to town on Wednesday. But let's get into this game. A lot of talking points about San Diego. The starting 11, and there is some rotation here because we would imagine Should be mentioned Olivier Giroud, Jeremy Abobasi, unavailable. So Hugo Reis, Artem Smolyakov, we talk, he has a goal of the week candidate there. Fantastic. Aaron Long and Kosi Tafari, which is good news for him. It means he's been working hard and the coaches like what they have seen. Sergi Palencia, 3-man midfield, as you would expect. Mark Delgado, Igor Jesus, Timothy Tillman. And then the interesting part up front, David Martinez on the left. There was some movement at the front three. Cengiz Under on the right, and then Denny Bouanga at the 9. I wanted to start about that because that's a big topic, because I think we like the wings. And this was something that LAFC had to deal with, and Matty Bogusz played a lot of the false 9. Denny Bouanga, who hasn't broken through league-wise goal scoring, so way off the pace, but finding a way, I guess, to get the best trio in the top. How did you see that?
It was interesting. I think that if you take this season as a whole and you look at the games, let's talk about MLS, because I know there was a 3-0 game at home against Columbus Crew, but let's talk about the MLS games. I would say that the game that they played against Sporting Kansas City a week ago was probably the best they've looked performance-wise, cohesiveness, right? And it was lacking arguably the best player on the team, when Denny Bouanga. And so I think I'll start with this conversation saying that Steve Cherundolo has an interesting dilemma, a good dilemma, I would say, in terms of problems of how to put not only the best players on the team, but how to formulate that into being the best team out there as well. And so I thought Nathan Ordaz played really well in the game against SKC. I thought he played really well when he came onto the game as well, down a man. I mean, he almost got the game-tying goal at the end of the game with that shot outside the box. So I think that it's a really interesting problem that Steve Cherundolo has right now. Obviously, we know what Denny Bouanga can do, but how can we get him to fit in with the other pieces? And I think David Martinez on the left is interesting. Obviously, Under gives us those Carlos Vela vibes on the right side of the field. Good to see him get a goal in this game. So, again, a lot of questions, not so many answers. I will say that the pieces didn't look completely, not fitting together. There was moments we saw, and obviously we scored 2 goals in the first half in kind of a little bit more of desperation mode, where we were down 3-0, we got to get a goal kind of thing. But we saw some action, some good actions in the front three that, we're starting to see a little bit more in as the season progresses. And so, again, it's how does Steve tinker with the pieces, whether it's Denny Bouanga as the 9, when Giroud and Abobasi comes back, is it him back on the left, David Martinez on the right, Under as the bench guy, or is it David Martinez coming off the bench? Or I don't know. What is he going to do, right? So many questions, but definitely a lot of interesting things to take from this game. A little insight into what Cherundolo is maybe thinking about in his brain.
In a substitution pattern, it was Denny who lasted the duration. David and Cengiz all coming out, and Nathan Ordaz, exceptional, not just for that chance, but 2 or 3 combinations. He looks like that super sub, but I don't want to classify him that, because he did start against SKC and look good. So I think he's a candidate to start that too. And Jeremy Abobasi and Olivier Giroud will come back, and that is it. I think with David Martinez, who was explosive on so many occasions, he had some chances to get that leveler late in the second half. And Denny Bouanga, and then Cengiz Under, I feel you have to keep because of the set pieces. He got his first goal. I wouldn't want, to your point, I wouldn't want to be in I wouldn't say it that way, but it's a tough one for Steve Cherundolo, but he's going to get time to see it, and hopefully more CONCACAF Champions Cup games to keep everyone pleased with the playing time, which hasn't been an issue. Everyone's kind of been on board with that. There was some movement with Bouanga and Martinez, and Denny Bouanga, even though it hasn't had those goals, after rewatching the game, he came close. He contributed. He was coming back from international duty. There was the cross by Bouanga, who would eventually set up the Under goal. So he was an active participant. But the switching part, I think, could be interesting, because obviously that's something that could keep opponents on their toes. And Denny, I think that it comes down to how comfortable is David in that middle channel. But I get the feeling he might be all right there.
Well, David has played a couple of games. I know that Steve's put him in that channel, and he hasn't looked out of his element in any way. I think that, again, I just think it's a lot more questions than answers. And when you're not, right now, LAFC is in a good enough position in the table, but these conversations are always a little bit harder after a loss, right? If you win and you have questions, it's great because, okay, we were able to do what we're supposed to do on the weekend, and now how do we tinker and up the level, so to speak? But obviously fans get restless even after one loss, and I think even the coaching staff, they don't want to, potentially go from one loss to two losses and whatnot. But again, I do think that there are options there. I don't know if Steve is thinking at all about possibly different formations, which might, possibly add different depths and elements to players' games and whatnot. But again, there's so many good players. I mean, the fact that, Nathan Ordaz, who might be beginning of the year, your sixth option is one of those front three, and he's playing the way that he is, it bodes really well for whatever that solution is going to end up being in the future, whether it's, Nathan Ordaz is one of the front three starters, or like you said, maybe a super sub role that comes in and connects with the other guys when the opponents are a little bit more tired. I just think that there are a lot of options, and eventually with time on our side, I think that you're going to find the right solution. I think Cherundolo will find those.
We are live on LAFC YouTube and LAFC Facebook. Max Bretos, Benny Feilhaber. Sorry about that. I would never do that again for you, Benny. I was in Chicago, by the way. I was in the same booth this week where I called your goal in 2007. I got some
goosebumps.
Yeah, some goosebumps, some nostalgia coming back.
I saw that the Chicago Fire are still getting those W's with Greg Berhalter over there. So that must have been a fun game to do.
Just got a point this week, but
was it just a point? Oh, yeah, that's right. Montreal. That's right. Okay.
Definitely trending in the right directions. We encourage you to ask questions. This is your show as well. We'll preview as well a little bit about the Inter Miami game. And I wanted to mention, before we go to some of the questions and move to our next topic, whatever that front three looks like, this coaching staff is smart. They will vet the trio. With regards to Jeremy Ebobisse or Olivier Giroud, I don't know their status as of taping of this show or recording of this show, but I'm waiting to see what a traditional number 9 looks like with Under on the field, who can serve the ball. And now that he's starting and now that he's scoring goals, I want to see that. And maybe Inter Miami's that opportunity where we could see it and hopefully bear fruit, because we saw Ordaz there, but either or Ebobisse or Giroud or both at some point with Under is something that I believe will produce.
Well, I think that Steve's going to try some different things, knowing that there's quite a few games coming up in the next 2 weeks, right? You got the 2 Miami games. Obviously, you got the MLS games on the weekend. And I have no doubt, based on what we saw in the previous 2 games with Columbus and CONCACAF, that we're going to see some manipulation of those front three for sure, right? Even the back, whether he goes to a back 3 in terms of personnel. Obviously, Igor Jesus is probably playing in this game, considering he's not playing in the next game with his red card. So it will be interesting to see what Steve Cherundolo does in this next game. But we have seen before that he's willing to kind of mix those pieces together. And again, it's going to be beneficial for him in the long run, because the answers are not etched in stone yet, and we're trying to find out a lot about our players right now, especially in that front 3, front 5.
Questions rolling in. Where are my Facebook peeps? If you're listening to Facebook, we need some Facebook questions. The YouTube folks always deliver, but I have faith in Facebook. Evan asking about coaching opportunities. I'm going to answer this. Benny's fully committed to Inside LAFC podcast. He signed a 5-year deal.
Not going anywhere.
Benny's a great coach, so we expect some opportunity where we would encourage him, much like our guy Betashore. He's now at Toronto and they're looking a little better. So it's all a pipeline here, but there's always a warm seat for Benny. There was a question here from Jay David, who's always here. Great to see you or hear from you again, about the style of play where, and this will set up to our next topic, where they chase the game. And they had to chase this game as well. Obviously, that is not the design. LAFC have not started well in any game, maybe SKC. They need to find that. But this is not by design. This is something that they are hoping to fix. And hopefully there's that eureka moment coming here at some point for LAFC.
Well, I think that you pointed it out brilliantly. The SKC game, I was there live, and it was from minute 1 to minute 90, a very good performance. And they came out of the gate playing really well. Obviously, there's moments during the game where you're nursing a 1-goal or a 2-goal lead, and the other team has a little bit more of the ball or creates a few more chances. But that game seemed to be in control for LAFC for vast portions of the game. And I would say that, again, not an MLS game, but the Columbus Crew game at home against one of the top 2 teams in MLS, in the sense that they have not lost yet, right? The only 2 teams that haven't lost are Inter Miami and Columbus Crew. And LAFC looked very good, very well tactically organized from a defensive perspective. Were very good on certain counterattacks and getting the goals when they deserved them and when they created them. And so we have seen moments. We haven't seen them consistently yet. But I think going back to just the San Diego game for a quick second, you're a team right now. LAFC is a team, and I don't think that we've got all the answers in a full identity, right? Forget about the personnel. I know that we're talking about a lot about the front 3 and who's going to fit in there, but from a tactical identity, I don't think we know exactly what this LAFC team is going to look like in 2-3 months towards the back end of the season. There's no doubt about it that Steve Cherundolo is emphasizing the defensive aspect, the defensive shape of the team. And he wants to make sure that that is balanced, right? That everybody's is part of the group protecting the goal. And he sees that from a counter perspective, in moments that you transition, you win the ball, that LAFC can be very, very good, right? Very dangerous against the opponent that they're playing against. And I think we've seen that. Now, go to the San Diego game. What you can't do in games that you're defending and want to counter or give up goals on set pieces. I mean, you have to be clinical on set pieces, and you're not going to, keep a shutout for a full season on set pieces. But obviously the second goal is a big mistake from Hugo Lloris, who we haven't seen too many of those in his time here, but that's a big mistake where he just drops the ball at the guy's foot. And the first one, I would say it's obviously merit from the San Diego player. I don't think the delivery is that good. It's just kind of lumped into the box with no power. The guy, jumps over, I think it was Mark Delgado. The guy's taller than him. He hits it kind of with the side of his head, and it perfectly falls into the goal. So a little bit of bad luck and from LAFC's perspective and merit. But at the end of the day, you got to be tough in those moments, because you're going to give up set pieces and corner kicks and free kicks outside the box if you're defending a little bit deeper. And so in those moments, you got to be very, very good to allow yourself to stay in that 0-0 game and not fall back. Kind of what, one of the comments were pointing out, that you don't want to be chasing a game when your MO is to defend and counter.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring up set piece defending. You touched on it there. And this hasn't really been an issue for LAFC this season. It was an issue in San Diego. The 2 goals you pointed out, there was one in the second half where the man marking was all wrong. And you could be critical. This is something they're going to, I imagine, focusing on a short training week. But it hasn't been a glaring situation. Giving up goals hasn't been a glaring situation. However, 3 against San Diego and the 5 against Seattle, every other game they've been really good defensively, other than the second leg against Columbus in CONCACAF Champions Cup. But they've been really good. And I still think that their identity is a very good defensive team. But the set piece defending, the first goal, it was kind of freakish. It was a blind header. It went in the back of the net. You're not going to see that again from Hugo Lloris. You haven't seen it in weeks and weeks and months for him. So you sweep it away. It was funny because on the replay, Aaron Long recycles out, and he was running back, assuming that Hugo had that. And then you see him look back and go, oh, boy. So that shouldn't happen. I will say about the set piece defending, Benny, it'll get better. But the free kicks that they gave up to set up those, that ended up being those 2 goals, pretty avoidable. Probably pretty soft fouls that I think were away from the play, pretty deep. I mean, those weren't on the edge of the 18. These are, I think, the players tell themselves, don't commit that foul there. I know it's easier said than done, but both of those goals could have been avoidable. And then LAFC not chasing a game. This game ends a lot different.
It is easier said than done. I agree. Once you're in that shell, so to speak, you at times get tired, and fatigue causes mistakes. Having said that, you're a team that works on those things, right? Obviously, Steve has been preaching the defensive habits, and not only can you work on the ability to, hey, we don't want to give up anything easy, anything soft. So set pieces, we're we're trying to defend in a way where we're not allowing balls to be coming into our box. Set pieces, you have no chance to avoid those, right? So can you be smarter? Can you be better at defending? And I think even I know this is part of the one of the topics that we're going to reach in, but I'll just like touch on it as well. The red card where you're on a yellow, and I think Igor Jesus has been very good. He's a pit bull, but he's smart, he's intelligent. He hasn't done anything to put himself in harm's way. But you're on a yellow, and you got to be smart in those moments as well, right? You're chasing a game, you're 3-2, you have a little bit of the momentum from the end of the first half. Can you keep it 11-11 and really push on and try and get that third goal? Obviously, with a man down makes it much more difficult. But it's kind of in the same mentality. Don't give up cheap set pieces in or around your box where teams can start serving balls into your box. And obviously, you want to make sure that you don't commit fouls that lead you to be playing down a man.
Let's talk about the Igor Jesus red card because it was huge. Without it, LAFC, I am 100% certain they get a point. If not, have a 4-3 comeback a la the Galaxy LAFC. Because it happened in the 53rd minute. It was really early. And the officiating in the game, Tori Pencil let play go it was the first 30 minutes, there was 4 yellow cards. So she established that. And then she let things go by and large, which was good because it was a physical game. The first yellow is a yellow for Igor Jesus. He clips up. The second yellow is a yellow, you could say too. I mean, he spoiled the play. He ran in. So both on their own are yellow cards. Now, Steve Cherundolo talked about this, about a situation similar to the second yellow by Igor Jesus, which wasn't punished against San Diego. Now, there was a moment for Ani Valakari. He stepped on the foot of an LAFC player. I can't remember who. Very, very similar to the first yellow. He got a warning. He got an explanation. So looking back at the game, hindsight's 2020, when I watched it, I wish that second yellow, it was one of those moments, and Benny, you've been there, and it's not an exact science where in a game where the yellow stopped, and it was pretty good back and forth, and that's her officiating. I think she set a situation from those early yellows on where the game was going, and it was a good, attractive game, and it allowed LAFC to get back in it. I was hoping that there was look, Igor, you can't do that. You can't do that. I gave Valakari the benefit of the doubt. I was hoping that would happen there, but water under the bridge. It's just some of the things you see, although I thought the 2 yellows were valid.
The game has become very subjective, right? The rules are written in a way where it allows the ref a lot of leeway one way or another. And I am probably one of the most critical of referees, and probably undeservedly so, because I almost see them as they should never make mistakes. But they're only human, like ourselves. And as much as anybody can beg and plead that, she could have had a little bit more, leeway for Igor because of what you said with the San Diego player, Igor, in the same fashion, could be a little bit more clever and not dive into a moment where he already has a yellow card and you don't want to put yourself in that position. So again, I almost think it's a wash. I don't think it's a bad call in any way. I don't think we can have, some kind of debate whether that ruined the game and LAFC were, screwed over in some way. I don't think that's the case. And I just think, as a player, we understand that those are going to go sometimes against us, and you just got to be a little bit smarter, a little bit cleverer in those moments and not put yourself in harm's way.
It was a very interesting situation. By the way, we're live on YouTube and Facebook. Let's get those questions in. We're going to ask some of them. We're going to answer some that have come in here over the last couple minutes.
Max, let me just add one thing. I wanted to add one thing, actually. So LAFC fans, really understand my mindset. I would be more disappointed as a spectator of the game, if I'm a neutral, if the ref now lets Igor Jesus get away with it. And I'll tell you why. Because as a San Diego player, it's not my responsibility for her to do that for him, if that makes sense. The players have to be smart enough to not put themselves in a position like that. And so I would love that she did the same thing for the San Diego player. I think that would be the yin and the yang of that. But I don't fault her for, being aggressive maybe with that second yellow card in that moment.
I also say about Igor Jesus, who has been exemplary. This wasn't his finest game leading even before the red card. So Maybe he wasn't completely into it, which is perfectly normal. You have good games, and sometimes you're just not the sharpness. But we know he'll be back. He's also 21. We got to remember, he's 20. He looks like he's 26.
He does.
He's
He
21.
plays like it too. I mean, he's shown a lot of intelligence so far. In the games that he's played in a very short period of time of being in the U.S. and the adaptation period for the league. It's never easy. And so, I didn't know he was 21, and it's fascinating now that you said it, Max.
He really is a remarkable talent. So many great moments ahead. And this was not swayed into LAFC's favor. Earlier in the game, there was a Sergi Palencia challenge in the area. I thought it was a penalty when I first saw it. It wasn't called. And then the VAR didn't review it. If Torrey Penso called that a penalty, the VAR wouldn't have reversed it, and San Diego would have got an early penalty. So there's a lot of things that come out in the wash with the officiating. It's tough to be a referee. We understand that. That was very nicely put. There was a comment earlier from Alan. Well, Alan asking how. Well, I'll save that for a little bit later. That wasn't Alan's question. It was Jordan saying, even that new guy Holm looked promising. I thought he looked very nice, especially playing with a man down, because he came in past the hour mark. And you mentioned we won't have Igor Jesus for the next MLS game in Houston, so it would appear that Odin Holm would be a front runner to slot into that spot, which is more great news because we've been waiting for him. He started injured, but he does have the look of a talented, technical, seasoned guy.
And the team looked really good playing down a man, which was, I mean, it's a good thing to see not only the fight, the battle, the desire to try and get a point out of that game when you're down a man, but the fact that from a pressure standpoint, guys were running. And that's one thing that a lot of times you see the energy like be raised across the board individually so that you can get pressure on the ball and defend. But then the talent, the quality, the movement offensively to create the chances that they did. I mean, Nathan Ordaz almost scored that goal. I mean, that was a whisker. I'm pretty sure that touched the post, and it kind of curled. It like just kept curling, and it looked like it was going in off his foot. But again, I was impressed with what I saw after the red card, and I don't think a lot of teams are capable of producing as many chances as LAFC did after playing down a man.
So let's talk about playing from behind and playing down a man. Before they were down a man, an incredible comeback. Smolyakov making a huge introduction with a spectacular goal. The second goal was a good team effort. All that happened within the final 5 minutes of the first half. So LAFC in a game down 3 where people might want to turn the TV off, I battled back, and this was a game, and LAFC heading into the second half, everything to play for. So some changes being made along the way. We talked about Odin Holm coming in. 73rd minute, Ryan Hollingshead, Eddie Segura, Nathan Ordaz come in as well. I know I'm missing one substitution here along the way. They had to move to a 4-3-2, obviously, for a man. But the adjustments, and let's go to some of the comments. Again, leave your questions, your comments. We will answer them here. We're going to be on for another 10, 11, 12 minutes. We'll preview Inter Miami. You get your questions about that so you can jump ahead of the curve. LAFC seemed to take the game seriously when they were down 3-2 and down a man. Then R. Palmar comes in and says, that can't be true. And I would say, I think there's a bit of both there with the playing from behind. Playing down a man, San Diego, and obviously they're not as urgent because they're up in this game. They had one good opportunity, one save that Hugo Lloris. There was two, but one was offside on Chucky. But there was one save that 10-man LAFC had to make from the moment the red card happened. That's really good defending. That's being locked in. I thought the passing was good coming out of the back. And you mentioned the Ordaz chance. There was a couple Bouanga chances. There was 3 or 4 chances down a man from the 53rd minute to the 90th minute, where LAFC, I think, did a nice job 10 men. How did you see their efforts down a man, down a goal?
I agree with everything that you said. And obviously we've touched on it, but I was impressed with what I saw. When I saw Igor Jesus going out with a red card, I kind of felt like that might be it, probably a 3-2, maybe even a 4-2 loss at that point. Most teams, I think, would probably, with 40 minutes left in the game, would probably sit back a little bit and hope to get to, maybe 10, 15 minutes left in the game, still only down 3-2, and then maybe take some chances. But LAFC played pretty evenly to San Diego. And now look, take into consideration as well, San Diego is probably, I'm pretty sure, has never played up a man in their history, right? So they're still trying to figure things out as well. And so there's some aspect of that matters as well. But at the end of the day, you're playing down a man, you're down a goal, you have to try and go and get something. You really didn't put yourself in harm's way to go down 4-2 in many moments of that game, and you were able to create opportunities. I mean, from the chances they created, they could have easily tied that game 3-3. And you're talking about a come from behind 3-0 against a very good San Diego team, down a man for 40 minutes. And so there's a lot of positives there. So other than the result, and I think the set piece defending in the first half, I think there are a lot of positives to take. And like I said, there's still a lot of question marks and positive question marks. I think most of the worries are things that you haven't seen that you're hopeful get better, as opposed to things that, hey, we're sneaking out results here and we're not going to be able to do this for much longer. So I see this going in a positive direction for LAFC. I think that my biggest question mark, what I talked about in the beginning, was what is the tactical identity going to be for this team come middle of summer, back into summer, leading into playoffs? Because I have a weird feeling it's not going to be sit back and defend and counter like we've seen maybe for large portions of certain games in the beginning of the season.
And we know LAFC can do both. So I'm very exciting. And that's well laid out, Benny, because positive problems. You have the personnel. There is going to be more player movement down the road, I'm sure. You have a young team. This is the youngest LAFC team I can remember in many years that you're going to rely. By the way, Igor Jesus, 22, not 21, but Igor Jesus, Nathan Ordaz, David Martinez, new players like Smoliakov, Cengiz Under, who just got off the plane. This is a team that needs to grow, but these are guys individually you see with a positive light. Let's answer some questions, then we'll get into the Miami game. I know we're all excited. Remember, it's 8:30 Pacific time. It's a late one, so get a good time to have a coffee, like 4 or 5. Sir Crispy, any thoughts on Ordaz starting? He's been really solid these last couple of games. I like him as a sub, Benny, but I wouldn't rule out a start in one of these 2 games this week.
No, and I think I'm looking at some of the comments as well, and people talking about Bouanga looking too comfortable. Look, one thing that I know about this coaching staff and Steve Cherundolo, he's not going to be worried about making changes that help the team. And I think if he sees potentially a moment for Nathan Ordaz to essentially take the starting spot from Bouanga, and kind of Bouanga has to have this a little bit, hey, I got to do a little bit more here or there or whatever, I think he'll do it. And I'm not advocating for that. I think Bouanga is still showing enough of, he's dynamic. He, like you said, he creates assists, he creates space. He almost had a game-tying goal in the San Diego game where I can't remember who slipped him and he had a shot with his left foot. And so he's just not finding the back end of the net as often as we're used to. But again, if there is a change that needs to be made, I think Cherundolo will see that. And I don't think he's going to be overly concerned with whose feelings he might be hurting.
Right. So, but it would surprise you if the question that you were answering, if Bouanga maybe sat a game on the bench. It's not going to be Miami, but maybe hey, Danny, we just want you to. I don't know how that.
4 games coming in 2 weeks, right, or less than 2 weeks, right? It's a Wednesday, Saturday, or whatever it is. I wouldn't be totally surprised if one of those games Bouanga comes off the bench. I don't know, especially with how well those 3 guys played against Sporting Kansas City. Now, I don't know which game that is. I don't imagine it's the Miami game. Maybe it's the Houston game. Maybe it's the game against Houston, who hasn't been playing very well. And, Cherundolo kind of uses it as a message, or he wants to see the combination of those 3 again. But I don't think it's impossible.
Very good. Happy foot, sad foot. Great. I'm sure that's Travis there chiming in, saying Ordaz looking so good this year. Always check out Happy Foot, Sad Foot Pod. Go to their podcast. Travis, Darren, Vince do a great job. Certainly after the games, tune into those guys. First-class content as well. And Sergio, gracias por los lindos palabras, Sergio, joining us from Facebook, saying LAFC, the most acclaimed and competitive team. I don't know, a lot of emojis at the end. But, Sergio, we're glad you're tuning in. And everyone on Facebook, bring it. You also set people off here. Alpine, we need to get everyone involved. We need to play a possession-based game to win. But I think what I'm hearing, Benny, is like you might see that, but we'd still get both at some point during the season.
I think that it will change. It will evolve, right? I think that's the right word. I think the way that Steve wants to play is a balanced attack. I don't think he wants to play, when I think of a counter-attacking team, I think of Portland over the last, 5-10 years, where they've always wanted to sit back and they go with some speed, explosive speed going into the attack, and they've always looked to do that. I don't see LAFC doing that now or ever, but I also don't necessarily see LAFC being that team that wants to hold Columbus Crew type of possession and complete passes and build out of the back every single time and find little pockets and then, get into the attack and create those number overloads, etc. I do think that it's a balanced attack, that they want to feel comfortable in the defensive aspect. And like I said, the easiest part, not easiest because nothing's easy in coaching, but the easiest first step is making sure that your team is connected defensively. And then the much harder step is the cohesiveness and formation of that front three, front five, outside backs joining the attack, which I don't think we've seen consistently yet. I do think it will evolve, Max. I think it'll get better. I think fans will enjoy what they're seeing, in 2 months' time. But right now it's still in that evolution.
Okay, Inter Miami comes to town, and that's going to be Wednesday night again, 8:30 Pacific time. If you're not at the stadium, you can see it on FS1 and VIX and Espanol, ESPN LA on radio, all coming your way Wednesday night. Lionel Messi as well, so we'll get your thoughts on that. We all remember 2 years ago when Inter Miami came here. It was an LA event. Everyone wanted to be there. I mean, the celebrities, the people that were there, just unbelievable. I don't know if it's going to be like that. It's going to be more of a business. This is a much more important game. Inter Miami, as you said earlier, still unbeaten, 4 wins and a draw. They've looked good. They got by Cavalier of Jamaica, 4-0 in their round of 16 game. They didn't have to go through 2 opponents like LAFC. I would say this about LAFC. Inter Miami is going to be the favorite. And Messi returned. He played 35 minutes, and he scored in a game against Philadelphia at home, which I thought Philadelphia deserved more out of. I thought they were the better team. That's neither here nor there. But from LAFC's perspective, Benny, they beat Colorado. They had the game in the cold. It wasn't pretty. Colorado's proven to be a really good team. And they had a great result this weekend, knocking, off the ranks of the unbeaten Charlotte. Very good. The Columbus Crew, undefeated. They have been good, but LAFC knocked them out. So they've already done very well in this competition to get to this point. Nothing was guaranteed, but this obviously is going to be a step up in class. Although I think Columbus and Colorado not far behind in many ways of what Inter Miami, the challenges, having to go to the cold, having to play a second leg, which they'll have to do in Miami. You have to, and the pressure is on, obviously, with the first leg for LAFC like Columbus to get goals and get a result.
Inter Miami is a different animal, and that's because of the players that you see. And you can start, obviously, with Messi, the best player of all time. So I think there's no doubt that Inter Miami is going to be the favorite, deservedly so. And I don't think LAFC should mind being in the underdog role. I think it's great that they're playing the first game at home. I think it suits, LAFC's current style, how they play, to not only play the first game at home, but a home and away, as opposed to the MLS regular season right now. I think is better suited for success for LAFC. So I think it's going to be interesting. And LAFC is going to have to play, almost flawless, because the thing with Miami, and the reason I see them winning so many games, isn't necessarily because they play consistently well for 90 minutes. It's for one massive reason, and they make you pay on every single mistake that you make. Messi doesn't forgive. I mean, Messi doesn't miss chances. Suarez doesn't miss chances, right? As much as he can barely run out there at times, when he gets the chance inside the box, he's going to bury it. And so I do think that you got to play a flawless game from a defensive perspective. You can't give up chances. You got to be opportunistic in the moments that you create, and that's how you beat Miami. And I think if LAFC can create a win, right? A lead going into the second leg, I think they put themselves in a really advantageous position against Inter Miami down in Florida.
Right. I think that's a great point because Inter Miami chasing a result do not have the same horses that Columbus did, a younger team that have a style with Wilfred Nancy, which would cater them to be able to chase. So getting it, I don't think you need 3 goals. I think 2 goals would be nice if you can win. If you win by 1 goal, I think that's, to your point, would still be something you can
hang your hat on.
Hang your hat.
Right.
But and remember,
don't forget about the away goal. So 1-0 win is much better than a 2-1 win. 1-0 win, you go into Miami with essentially a 1.5 goal lead and hope for a draw or a one goal loss as long as you get a goal yourself. So a lot of opportunities, but obviously that first game is critical and you got to make sure you keep Messi off the board, Suarez off the board. This will be a game that'll be interesting how much possession LAFC can keep, because the more possession you keep, the more you keep those 2 players out of it, because they essentially don't defend. They don't defend as much as the other guys. So a lot of question marks or a lot of curiosities, I should say, about what Steve Trundle is going to, set the team up to find success against these guys.
We're live on LAFC YouTube, LAFC Facebook. Grandstand, 2-3 minutes here, and we're going to wrap it up. So get your questions and your comments in. Jay David, by the way, I have not said it, but love to have you back with LAFC, with Max on the podcast. That's obviously directed at you, Benny. Alpine following up. The style doesn't work. We win because of the talent. We do have the talent, but the style, I think, is important, right?
Well, I think that the talent is, you want to fit a style that fits the talent. And I think that you have, no doubt you have the talent. There's not a question that you have the talent at that team. And I think the style, like I said, I think it's one that is working. I mean, you're in the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and you're, I don't know exactly where we are in the standings right now, but around top 5 in the West. So things are working. Again, I don't think it's perfect yet, and I think it will evolve.
We're going to wrap it up and talk about Messi, but I think it's important to not forget about Messi. It's also important to not put too much on him, because he's going to create a mania. There's going to be tons of Messi shirts, as there are all over the place. He is a phenomenon. You cannot tabulate how big of an impact has. His goal against Philadelphia, which ended up being the game-winning goal, there was a play where Suarez turned, and there was like a 3-on-2. He had Fafa Picault. He had Messi on his right. Everyone's thinking he's going to go to Messi. He goes to Picault, and then Messi keeps running, and eventually it comes back to Suarez. He gets it to Messi, who has a 1-on-1. And that's the position you want to get him. A 1-on-1, Messi's going to convert. But Messi's been injured sometimes here, and Inter Miami hasn't really missed a beat. He wasn't there for the first leg. He played like half an hour in the second leg in the game against Cavalier. So it's important, as Messi is, the rest of the team, they got some ballers defensively. They got a good team. It's not Messi lifting them up. He really helps. But this is a collective, and it's certainly Suarez, if he's fit and able to run, you want to get him tired. He's another difference maker. But different guys off the bench, good team.
Very good team. They understand how they're going to be successful with the older players, I should say, around him, because as much as Messi is, I mean, of course, I have my own biases with Messi. I think he is the best player in the history of the sport. But he is 38. Am I right in 38, Max? I think he's 38.
Yeah.
37 or 38.
47.
Him and Suarez are both old guys that don't cover
37.
So the ability that LAFC has to keep the ball in this game and not allow them to be as big of a part in this game, I think is crucial, because you can essentially play 11 against 9 to some extent if you hold on to the ball for vast majorities of the time. But again, they're going to find their moments, and you got to be really, really good when they do, because like you said, a one-on-one moment with Messi, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. And apparently some tickets, if you go to LAC.com, see if you can get in the building. You won't want to miss it. Don't give up set pieces.
I like what Craig Griffin said. Messi is good, but he's no Ryan Hollingshead.
That's a fact. Hope Marlon will be back. We can win versus Miami. Can't wait. We'll recap it because there's a second leg the following Wednesday. But obviously not thrilled about San Diego, but a lot of positives what I can take away from this program today, Benny, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Good. So keep your head up. A lot of exciting days yet to come. Glad you could join us on Inside LAFC Podcast. We're here every Monday, 12:30 Pacific time on LAFC YouTube and Facebook. Until next Monday, so long. Let's go black and gold.